Today I built a custom set based off the season 4 episode Rock and Roll. Now I recently remade this channel and just released it on my channel. So I thought a great way to celebrate would be by making a custom set of that episode. When I create custom sets like this, I try to make it as realistic as possible to what I think Learning Curve or Mattel would have released during their run with the Wooden Railway line. So I decided to pick the year of 2000, but this set actually works for 2001 as well, so pick whichever one you want. The big feature of the set is the Wacky Track, which I think is kind of a mixed review type of item. I know as a kid I really enjoyed it because it was a long piece of track that I could use for layouts, and it was so easy to move around. You could really make it into just about any shape you needed for your layout. However, there's definitely some downsides. It just doesn't really fit with a lot of what Wooden Railway has released over the years. That said, it never was really featured in a set, and I thought this one would actually make sense to have it be a feature. In the episode Rock and Roll, when Duncan crashes and comes off the line, at least for me watching, it feels like that Wacky Track could potentially fit in this spot. Now, I personally didn't use that in my remake, as I generally don't use Wacky Track that much. However, I think it could have fit, and I could have easily made the exception there and included it. Now, when I build these sets, I try to put 2 destinations in here, so it doesn't feel the best to use this as a destination, but I just think it makes sense. And when you look at it, Wooden Railway really never put these into sets, so I think this is a decent opportunity to do it. And I like the way it really structures this set, because the track is so, I guess, wacky in terms of how it's set up. We just never see a design like this because, frankly, with Wooden Railway Track, you just can never do it. And only Wacky Track gives you the ability to do it. So I really think this set helps to jump out at you because of the Wacky Track. The other destination included in the set is the Arch Viaduct. Now, I've used it before in custom sets, and honestly, when you look at Wooden Railway over the years, it was put in a decent amount of sets. And I just feel this is such a narrow gauge item that I wish it wasn't on curved track and that they just used straight track for this. But it is what it is. At the start of the episode, Skarloey does go across the Arch Viaduct, so I thought, why not put it in here? Duncan sure doesn't use it a lot, but he's also using that in another episode as well, so maybe you could pretend this is a 2-parter type of set. As for the rolling stock I included, I tried to keep to the rule that most sets of this size had, which was 3 rolling stock items, so that's what I went with. Starters has to be Duncan. I mean, how can you do Rock and Roll without Duncan? It's basically named after him. Now, I don't think this is a realistic request, but I would have loved to see in a set like this, Duncan with an upset or a surprised face, but we just did not get it often, especially at this time in the Wooden Railway line, so I definitely wouldn't pencil that in, but it'll be a fun suggestion. The other character I included in the set is Rusty. I could see an argument for Skarloey, but I think Rusty plays a bigger role to the story in Rock and Roll than Skarloey, so I decided to include him. Now, Rusty has the white roof here, as this was released in 2000, and he was retired the year before, so in some ways I'm making a little exception, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. As in fact, a year later, he gets re-released with a little bit of a different design. So in 2001, I could see them potentially replacing the white roof Rusty with this new one, or just keeping that white roof Rusty until he's out of stock. But I think a set like this for Rock and Roll really deserves to have Rusty in it. The last rolling stock included is the 10-year anniversary coach. Now, I don't think it's realistic to expect that this coach would be here. In fact, I would hope that a narrow gauge coach would take its spot. However, I don't own one, and at the time, the narrow gauge coach was not in the Wooden Railway line. It would take a few more years until that was the case, and I would hope they would make an exception and actually make it this year. I'm honestly surprised that was never released as a separate item and was one you could only purchase in sets. Regardless, I think it would fit perfectly here, but kind of like I do in my remakes, I decided to use the 10-year anniversary coach, as I think that's the next best thing to be a narrow gauge coach. It's said throughout this episode, and honestly through a lot of season 4, just how beautiful the narrow gauge railway is. So I decided to include 6 trees here, 2 yellow, 2 red, 2 green, to kind of give more life to the layout. I know a lot of times I don't include some of these extra accessories, but I really wanted to make sure it was included here. I think especially with what was going on in Season 4 for the narrow gauge, it just makes sense to include as many trees as we can get here, and I think 6 is a fair number. I also included the 2 fence pieces that come with the gristmill with water wheel. Now, I know Duncan doesn't actually hit a fence, but I think it's nice to have something to recreate the episode with and have Duncan crash into. And that is my custom wooden railway rock and roll set. Now, the episode just didn't give a lot that could be included here. Like, I did think about including a station like Wellsworth, but the problem is it's not a narrow gauge station, and the wooden railway just never had narrow gauge stations during its run. So I decided against including a station. Now, at the start of the episode, there were a lot of pretty shots, and that's why I included the arch viaduct here, but outside the crash, there's just not a lot of great places that they go to in this episode. I really enjoyed including the Wacky Track in the set. I personally feel that it helps make the set stand out so much. I think if a parent was walking down the aisle and they saw this set, because of the Wacky Track being front and center, they would probably at least double take and look at this set again. That being said, if I'm realistic, I don't know if Wacky Track's enough to push this set over the edge and make a parent actually go out and purchase it. I think it really needs a custom narrow gauge coach because it just wasn't in the wooden railway line at the time. And I think that's what really would push it over the edge. So if that request actually happened, I think this could have been a pretty successful set. And if you purchased the set the year it came out, 2000, Rusty had just been retired. I don't know if that's a big enough incentive for parents to go out and get him, but if you did miss him during his initial run, this was a great opportunity to do it. Unfortunately, a year later he was re-released, so it definitely hurt that impact in the long run, but at least in the short term, this first year run, you could get an engine that was just retired. I really enjoyed getting to remake this episode, and I enjoyed making a custom set out of rock and roll as well. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more.